Hey guys, welcome back. This video is focusing more on expanding your combat and making it more fun than it originally was, with simple additions or maybe a complete overhaul and one small mod. So if you end up liking the video, hit that like button down below and let's dive right in. Oh, and also don't forget to endorse mod authors. Starting off with one of those complete overhauls and a small download, we have the WILDCAT mod, a mod that you can't really go wrong with. It's a complete rework of the combat in Skyrim, with the first noticeable part being the new stamina system. With WILDCAT installed, if you have the stamina option turned on, everything you do will cost stamina now, besides maybe jumping, but even swimming will drain stamina. With these new stamina changes, timing your attacks will become essential, because hit or miss, it will drain a set amount of stamina that is configurable in the MCM, but at the start, 5 and 10 stamina and then also holding the bow draining stamina can be detrimental to you. And of course, once you run out of stamina, your character starts to move a lot slower. But on top of all of that, this system went even further and added an injury system. At base, the requirement for an injury is your health being lower than 25%, and then there's a base chance every hit following that may result in a new injury. And these injuries can stack, but the injuries aren't permanent. There are ways to remove it by either waiting until the timer for the debuff is up, or finding ways to remove it, such as a heal injury spell that just got added to your game, along with the potion. To get the new potions or the scrolls, you can find it injected into the basic level list for vendors, but it does cost quite a bit to buy. The other alternative to the potions and the scroll is to just use the magic spell that this mod also adds. With these spells, you can either completely heal an injury or go mischievous and give the injury to an NPC attacking you. But for the people on console, you won't have an MCM, so to configure this mod, you'll need to use the new power added to your magic menu upon joining the game. But people on PC, of course, it's a little easier to edit things. And if you allow it, you can have WILDCAT change the damage multipliers, allowing for every hit to be somewhat deadly. And to have the damage multipliers change, you have to toggle it on in the MCM, and by default it is turned off, so it will follow whatever your game has set up. But as soon as you turn it on, it'll overwrite all damage multipliers for yourself and enemies. There are quite a few mods I recommend combining with WILDCAT for a complete experience, but they aren't on console. So up next, we have the mod Sekiro Combat. I recommend the S version, which is just the smaller version, less features, but still works fully. With Sekiro Combat, we have a completely new time block system, allowing for you to block all forms of damage. Of course, you'll have to take some form of damage because you didn't perfect block it, but not as much as if you weren't using this mod. But on top of the block, there's two new versions of the time block. The first version will have enemies stagger, allowing for you the chance to counterattack them once you block it. But the second and the ultimate perfect parry, hard staggers them, almost causing them to fall, and it adds a cool little cinematic effect on top of the sparks that trigger every time you block a hit. Because the cinematic effect will slow down time temporarily, and if you time it perfectly, you can pretty much parry any type of creature in Skyrim, even magic, but the magic has to have some type of explosion. It doesn't block the initial damage. From my experience testing, the time block didn't trigger during fire attacks, and some of the frost attacks also didn't work, but it will trigger during shock and frost spells. Not entirely sure what the difference is, but you can combine WILDCAT's stamina system with this time block mechanic, and then you can really time every attack and never waste stamina. Because as a heads up, WILDCAT already makes combat extremely hard, and then you take away just the free blocking at a time block instead, it's going to be a little hard. So just to make it a little bit easier on yourself, we have the mod action-based projectiles. This mod slows almost all projectiles in Skyrim, ranging from arrows to spiders just spitting poison on you. The range and the nerf to the speed is based on immersion, because arrows should still be fast while not being impossible to see. I mean, in real life they would kind of be impossible, but it's a game where you're pretty much a god. You should be able to dodge it, right? So even with the speed being lowered, it still can hit you if you aren't paying attention. While the projectiles from spiders shouldn't be as fast as lightning, so they have been slowed down to be pretty much almost impossible to get hit by unless they surround you. But this mod doesn't just change projectile speed, it also changes the form of the projectile, so some attacks aren't a continuous stream of fire now. So they were transformed into projectile type attacks like you see with Fireball, rather than continuous streams that kill you extremely quickly, but not all of them were changed. And this wouldn't be a real combat video if you didn't at least try to make enemies harder in your game. So with the first mod, we have the Restless Dead. Draugrs are definitely the most common enemy type that aren't an animal. So this mod expands on them because of how common they are and how easy it is to run into them. But not just Draugrs, skeletons were also changed, adding dozens of new enemy types for Draugrs and skeletons, with the plethora of patches for you on installation because a mod this expansive is bound to have incompatibilities, but luckily there's a patch for pretty much every major mod out there. With this mod, Draugrs will now have new boss type enemies that are stronger than normal Draugrs and tons of new armor variations for them, so you can see them using more than just the ancient Nordic armor. Skeletons also have been given the same treatment. If you love the mod from Mihail that adds missing limbs to skeletons, this mod does that as well. I mean, nothing will break if you use both of them, but there's really no reason to. This next mod also expanding on the enemies of Skyrim. This mod is called Know Your Enemy, but the difference with this mod is that I'm combining both of the mods, Know Your Enemy 2 and Know Your Enemy 2 armors, because for console it is an all-in-one. With Know Your Enemy, every enemy type in Skyrim has been given new resistances and weaknesses that you can find out the hard way while fighting it, or you can use the new power added to your magic menu that lets you inspect any creature or animal or just NPC. But it will probably be better to do it after they're dead or before they notice you. With Know Your Enemy armor, you will also be affected with this mod because buffs and weaknesses are applied dynamically based on what armor is being worn, as well as the material of the armor. You'll also be given special perks if you have a full set of said armor on versus just random pieces of it equipped. Both of these mods can be used separately. You don't need both of them combined, but you'll get the full effect if you do use them all together. With Know Your Enemy, you won't be able to just use one weapon type or go pure mage builds. You have to prepare for every fight and swap out weapons frequently just to make sure you're always at some type of advantage, because it's impossible to always be at a full advantage with so many enemy types grouped together. But at least you don't want to be at a disadvantage often. And the ways to check that is to just check your magic menu, the effects menu, and it will tell exactly what your weaknesses and also what your buffs are. And if you're on PC, I highly recommend the integration patch. But on to another mod that spices up combat in my opinion. We have the mod Instincts Animal Taming. With this mod, you can walk up to a creature after you've gotten them low. You have to make sure that you have the food that they like, which is mainly meat, but for peaceful creatures you'll need some type of plant. But this mod finally puts to use all that animal meat that you never really use because you don't play on survival mode. But to use this, if you have a perk overhaul such as Ordinator, it'll add the perk straight to your skill tree, and it'll let you tame animals based on your speech skill and also how much meat you have in your inventory. The patches for the perk tree aren't needed. If you don't have the patch, it'll just make it so it gives the taming power immediately upon joining the game, but this is a way to balance it out if you have a mod such as Adamant or Ordinator. As mentioned before, your speech skill will determine if you can tame the animal, and that is based on the size and aggression of the animal. But once the animal is tamed, they become a special follower, and all you have to do is interact with them. And once you do, you'll be able to randomly name the animal. You can also level the creature up after they gained enough experience from fighting alongside you. You can also make them hold your things. Every animal has a special advantage, like the aggressive predator creatures such as bears or wolves will be much better at combat, while creatures like bristleback or maybe elk are better for carrying items. Because they are classified as followers, you can integrate them into systems such as Nether Follower Framework, which I don't recommend, and some animals are off limits as well. I can't imagine having a pet mammoth during combat being fair. And while you can pretty much own any animal and level them all up equally, some animals are just better than the others. Like wolves can't beat bears. The last mod making combat a little harder, we have Simple Degradation. With this mod, after enhancing a weapon at the sharpening wheel or maybe an armor at the blacksmith table, it won't be permanent just like enchantments. After using your weapon a lot or getting hit a lot during combat, the weapon and armor will begin to degrade back to its normal regular stats and state. By stages of course, it won't just jump from legendary to normal, but it will degrade back to normal if you're not upkeeping your weapon. This mod is not meant to be a hassle, but it will make preparing for combat along with Know Your Enemy that much more important. This mod at base is toggled off for PC, you have to turn it on in the MCM, and pretty much everything including how fast your weapon degrades is up to you. This mod also has an extra feature requiring spell perk item distributor that I couldn't find in other mods like this, because when enemies spawn they will have a random chance to have an enhanced equipment that you can loot and use for yourself. But it is based on your level, so at level 1 you'll probably only find fine equipment, you won't get overpowered. But this is definitely a must-have mod to me. And like I said, this wasn't meant to be a complete combat overhaul, but just making combat that much more harder and important in your game. So if you end up liking the video, make sure to hit that like button down below, and if you downloaded any of these mods on PC, make sure to endorse the mod author. But as of right now, peace and love guys.